Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Today we are going over my game system, Arches and Avatars, and we're going over the character creation process, which essentially we're on the weapons and armor now. All right, so we have a couple things to cover when it comes to weapons and armor. There's proficiency, and then all of the various maneuvers, because that's the really interesting thing about weapons. You get to armor, there is proficiency, and then with both of them, there's specialization. This is something I added in A&A that, I was playing Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, which is, one of my favorite games. And there was this cool thing where you had these special power attacks where, in Skyrim you have your standing power attack, you stand still and hit, or your forward power attack, and then your sideways power attack, and then your backwards power attack. You move backward while you attack, and it does something, right? And I was like, that's cool, I like that. But in Oblivion, in Skyrim you can get perks to make those actually do cool things. In Oblivion, you've got those perks automatically, right? If you, at 25 skill in, say, blade weapons, you would get your standing power attack, you'd get a feat, essentially. You'd get a new ability, right? At 50, you'd get one. At 75, and at 100, you would get, the last ability. Each of these abilities was a new kind of power attack. Your backward power attack, if you move backward while doing a power attack, you can knock someone prone. It was really cool to see him just ragdoll back. If you move sideways, you can disarm them. And if you move forward, you can paralyze them. Like you hit them right in the joint and they just, and they fall down and then you start beating on them. I was like, different power attacks that you get automatically as you level up is cool. But how do you do that in a tabletop game? It's like, well, you're proficient with martial weapons, so I guess you can just get extra power attacks that you can use with all martial weapons. It's like, no, I want it to be a choice you made. I wanted it to be a little more specific. So I gave you specializations. There's blade, blunt, and pierce, right? So, your bladed weapons, they do slashing damage. Your blunt weapons do bludgeoning damage. And your piercing weapons do piercing damage, right? I'll probably change pierce as a specialization just to avoid confusion with piercing damage. But anyway, you have those three major specializations. You also technically have a fourth specialization, ranged. I'll get to that. But so each weapon has its own specialization. And at Journeyman, at Journeyman, at novice proficiency with a weapon, with any weapon, right, or a group of weapons, you get to add your proficiency bonus to the weapon. In A&A, you get novice proficiency plus 3 to all your weapon attacks. Okay. And then at Journeyman proficiency, you can exchange the weapon's primary damage die to use the weapon's maneuver, as long as you get at least one surplus on the die. And the specifics of this I might change as we go, in future updates. This is just how it is now. So that means if you just attack someone and hit them normally, and you have your damage die, your D8, right? You can't use your weapon's your weapon's fancy maneuver. You didn't hit him hard enough. You didn't overpower him enough. If you get a surplus, if you get at least 5 over his AC, you can take your primary damage die and say, I'm not going to roll that for damage. I'm instead going to trip him, disarm him, etc. You get to use your weapon maneuver at the cost of doing less damage. At Adept proficiency, you can exchange any of your damage dice, including surplus. So if you do like a D8, D6, and D4, because you got 10, 2 surplus, you got 10 over his AC, and you do a bunch of extra dice, you can take the smallest one and be like, yeah, I'm exchanging my D4, and I trip him, right? So it means you're better and better at it. You get to keep more damage. You don't have to exchange as much damage for the maneuver. You get to exchange a smaller amount of damage, right? So it's just a simple upgrade as you go. But anyway, something that every weapon has access to. Well, not every weapon. Well, technically every weapon. Okay, anyway. Any D12, if you're attacking someone and you have a D12 damage, a D12 damage die, whether that's from, like a battle axe, Fighty calls it a great axe, whether it's from a battle axe or you have a longsword, which is, you're using a longsword with, two-handed, it's a D10, and then you get a crit, so now you have a D12. It doesn't matter where the D12 came from. If you have it, you can exchange it to knock your creature prone. It doesn't matter what your weapon is, right? If you have a D10 damage die, you can exchange any D10 damage die. You roll the damage, you have a D10, you can exchange it to disarm the creature, right? And any D8 you can exchange to shove a creature 5 feet, right? So you have your swords, your weapons, your whatnot, and you're hitting someone and you roll that D8, it's like, cool, I exchanged the D8, I shove him 5 feet. No save, nothing. His save was your attack roll. Your attack roll was seeing if you could actually do it And as long as you get that 5-10 over, you get surplus, you get enough of those extra dice, you can spend them. I really kind of require you to have watched my previous videos to understand anything I'm saying. Maybe I should be more simple about it. Okay, oh, another cool thing, if there's a maneuver that moves a creature somehow, moves him, knocks him prone, knocks a weapon out of his hand, if it moves some part of the creature, then you need an extra surplus die, an extra die, in order to make that effect happen for every size category above medium they are. So for a large creature, if you're trying to trip an ogre, you need to have 2 surplus instead of 1, right? If you're trying to trip a giant, you need 3 surplus, right? You have to actually, this is really tough, he's really big. It's in 5e, it's kind of lame that all of your abilities work on any creature of any size. Absolutely not. In A&A, that's another 5 over that you need each time for each size category they are, above medium. All right, so now we're just going to get into a couple of examples of weapon maneuvers. All right, so to circle back with the whole specialization thing, actually I'll get to that in a minute. Examples of weapon maneuvers. We have, I believe, all the weapons that you have in 5e. All right, so hand axe, bladed weapon, one-handed, d4 damage, and you have the quick toss maneuver. Draw and throw weapon as part of another attack. It is also a light weapon and it has the thrown property 2060. Sickle, 1d6 damage. Trip maneuver, knock the target prone. So, you're doing your thing, and you get, surplus, so great. I exchange the d6, I knock him prone, and only do the extra d4 damage, right, if you get a surplus. Simple, you knock him prone, happens. Because you're a sickle, you grab his legs and you pull him out from under him, you trip him, it makes sense. Club, a d4 damage, disorient maneuver. Target can't take next think action. So you whack him on the head, he's like, and he can't think. That's really good for spellcasters. Yeah, you could go up and use your longsword and do a d8 damage, and this one only has a d4, but guess what? This one you hit him and you guarantee he can't take his next think action, which means he can't cast a spell. That's kind of cool, this makes the different weapons actually matter. It's not like, it's a d4, I'd never touch it. It's like, no, I might actually need that. The different weapons actually do different things because they have weapon maneuvers. They're really cool. You need to have journeyman proficiency with these to use them. At least that's why I'm doing it right now. And you can only get journeyman proficiency at level 4, except the fighter, they get it at level 1 because they're a fighter. They're really good with weapons. I could keep going. Quarterstaff, d4 damage, vault maneuver. You use an achieve action and you triple your jump distance. It also has riposte maneuver. Achieve action as a reaction, advantage against target when they miss you. So yeah, if someone's attacking you and they miss you, you get advantage on your next attack. You get to take an attack as a reaction with advantage, right? Because you knocked it out of the way and then hit them, really hard. You go to pierce weapons, dagger. This is a cool one. It does d4 damage, ambush maneuver for your dagger. Add half your dex score to your careful movement speed and gain an extra attack with the dagger when attacking with an achieve action. Thrown, it's light weapon, thrown, 2060. So, in my system, you have your movement speed, it's usually 20 feet for most people, and then you have your careful movement speed, which is half that, and you can only sneak when you're using careful movement, right? So, 10 feet of careful movement. Careful movement also it lets you sneak. You can search for traps when you do careful movement. Careful movement doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. It's essentially the disengage action, but no one in 5e ever takes the disengage action because it's your whole action and then you sit there. And then you're like, well, I have to move. You move 30 feet. Then enemy moves up 30 feet and hits you again. It's like you did nothing, right? The disengage action is only useful if you also get to move a little bit with it. So in my system, you disengage and you move half your speed, and then you can use your normal movement speed to go further. And so when they move their full movement speed, they're still a little bit away from you, right? That you disengaged and moved a little bit. You have to have both or else it's entirely useless. That's why no one takes disengage action. In my system, I just call it careful movement. You take your move action. By the way, you get to use a move action to disengage, right? You don't have to use your full main action. It's really cool. You can attack with your main action and then use 2 actions. One to use your careful movement, you move 10 feet. The other one to use your full movement and move another 20 feet, right? So you're 30 feet away and you got to attack that turn. Like, you actually get to do it. It actually works. Disengaging works in my system. Ugh. Also, you gain an extra attack with the dagger when attacking with an achieve action, which really works well for rogues because it's only d4, but you attack twice with it every time. It's like, that's cool. Anyway, I could keep going. I'm going to go to martial weapons. Martial weapons generally do more damage, the same as in 5e. Short sword, 1d6 damage. Parry maneuver, of course, requires 1 surplus. Reduce damage taken by 1d6 plus your strength or dex mod when next hit by target. So you can attack someone, you get a surplus. You're like, okay, great. I'm spending this surplus to parry his next attack, right? So that means his next attack against me, I reduce that damage by 1d6 plus my strength or dex. Whichever I choose. So that's cool. You hit him with, and you're winding up for parry, right? Use a short sword if you want to stay alive a little longer than most people, right? That's cool. The short sword has a specific niche, a specific use. Yeah, it doesn't do as much damage as a long sword, but it helps you stay alive a little better. You can parry with it better because it's not like a big long sword. It's more bulky. It's harder to do. A short sword, you can parry with it better. It makes sense and it's unique. Like my system actually gives you cool stuff to do. It gives you interesting choices. It's not just 5e where you just pick the D8 weapon or the D12 weapon if you're two-handed. There are only 2 good weapons in the whole game in 5e. It's your longsword and your great axe. That's it. No, who would pick anything else? Well, there's glaive. There are other reach weapons. Yeah, reach weapons, great axe, and longsword. That's it. Why pick anything else? I'll tell you why. Because they do different things. All right, war axe. A D8 damage, menacing maneuver, frighten target for 1 round. So he can't willingly move toward you. That's cool. You get a surplus and you hit him with an axe and it's like, I'm gonna kill you. It's like, oh no, right? An axe it's kind of a scary weapon. Yeah, sword is scary, everything's scary. But an axe, it's like Viking, it's scary, right? So it's like, you frighten him for 1 round. That might be useful. He has disadvantage on all his attacks for the next round because you're within line of sight and he can't willingly move toward you. That might be really useful, right? You get it with the war axe. See? Everything isn't just better than the other thing. You use different weapons based on your circumstance. It's actually interesting. All right, longsword, 1d8 damage. Commander's maneuver, 1 ally makes 1 free action attack as a reaction. Okay, in my system, you have your move action, achieve action, speak action, and think action, right? You also have a basic action. It's opening a door, picking up an item, etc. It's what 5e calls a free action. You can just do one minor thing in the world. I call that a basic action, okay? A free action in my system doesn't take up any other actions. As long as there is a trigger in the game that lets you take a free action, you can take one. You don't have a certain number of free actions a turn. If it's a free action, it's a free action. Totally free. So this, you can use your longsword, and if you get a surplus on your attack, you can make an ally. It's called commander's maneuver. You can make an ally make a free action attack. Takes up no resources, totally out of the blue, free action. That's cool. Like, you're a commander, you have the longsword. It makes the king, the leader, the captain with the longsword, follow me, and he inspires people, right? It's like, there's flavor with it, right? Is that better than all the others? Well, maybe. It's 1 attack. The other one, gives the guy disadvantage on all his attacks and makes him not move toward you. That might be more useful, right? The other one keeps you alive longer with parry. That might be useful. The dagger one, you get to move a lot faster with your careful movement and move around and disengage and sneak better. That's better for rogues, right? There's no better or worse here, right? And of course, if I find something that's super overpowered, I can change it, right? But for now, these are different maneuvers that actually do different things, and it's actually interesting. There's no one right choice. I really like it. Blade flail. Yes, I have a blade flail, a spike flail, and a bludgeon flail, a blunt flail, right? 3 different kinds, because I think flails are cool, man. We need more flails. All right. Blade flail, 1d8 damage. I also have, a lot of the martial weapons do a d8 damage, right? Feinting maneuver, advantage on next attack against the target. So it's like you swing and you act like you're about to hit him, and he goes up to block, and then you feint, and then you go around again and hit him again. So it's like, whoosh, whoosh, and so you get advantage on your next attack against him because you feinted the first time. That's cool. Also, they always ignore shields because that's the whole point of a flail. You have a stick and a chain, and then a ball on the end with spikes or something. It's supposed to get around shields. That's why flails were made, right? So you always ignore shields with that. That's a specific thing. You may not wield that all the time, but you might, if you're going up against someone with a shield. This is why being a fighter, this is why having proficiency with all these weapons is so useful. It's really cool because you're prepared for any situation, right? Playing a martial character is actually cool. Martials are cool again. Marshals are cool in my system. You actually get to do cool stuff and make interesting choices. In 5e, you have your casters and you have all the different spells and all the cool choices. Well, in this you actually have cool weapons and cool choices. I mean, this is your bread and butter. You have weapons, they have spells. Your weapon choices should be as important as their spell choices. Also, if you'll notice, you don't have 300 weapons to choose from. In my system, each caster does not have 300 spells anymore. We tone it way down. Picking your spells at the start of the day is much easier because you're not having to look through 200 tomes, okay? And you don't have nearly as much versatility. Each caster subclass, because each subclass has its own spell list, each subclass is narrow. It's like, oh, you're a charming bard. You get this charm spell, that charm spell, charm spell, charm spell. You don't get fly, you don't get levitate, you don't get fireball, you don't get invisibility, you don't get open lock. You're a charming bard. You do charm stuff, right? You narrow it down and let them do their niche, let them be utility, but don't let them overshadow everyone else by just having all of the magic in the universe, right? It balances the game, closes the martial caster divide, makes everything fun to play. All right, let's see. Scimitar, disarming maneuver. Okay, you know how it normally takes like a D10 to disarm someone with, like, you can use any weapon, and as long as you get a D10, either through upscaling your surplus or because the weapon is a D10, as long as you exchange that D10, you can disarm someone. Well, if you have a scimitar, which is only D6 damage, you have less damage, but you have the disarming maneuver. Disarm the target, their weapon landing in their space. So there's a little trade-off. Yeah, less damage, but you disarm a lot more easily because it's a scimitar. It's like a saber. It's curved, so you can be like, shaw, and take it out of their hand. That's your thing, right? Scimitars are cool. A lot of people look at it and like, oh wow, I want to use a scimitar. I like disarming everyone. Cool. All right. Two-handed weapons. Great sword is 2d6. Inspiring maneuver. Okay, 2d6 is a lot of damage. It's really good. Its maneuver isn't so great. Inspiring maneuver. Frighten creature for 1 round. That's Fright target for 1. That's the same as War Axe. I didn't realize. Anyway, it's not the best thing in the world. Battle Axe 1d12. Sweeping maneuver. Same damage to different target in range. So as long as you get a surplus on that spell, on that attack, you can do the same damage you do. You exchange the surplus, whatever damage that is, across 2 targets, right? If you get multiple surplus, you can just exchange and do the same sweeping maneuver to multiple targets within range. You hit 2 of them, 3 of them. You feel like a battle axe. You're just like swinging around and you're hitting multiple people almost all the time. Another big thing that I guess I should mention now is you have, I think I mentioned it in a previous video, probably about combat or something, but you have 2 ways to use a weapon maneuver. One is by exchanging a surplus, and as you heard earlier, as you upgrade it, you can exchange smaller surplus instead of the biggest one, right? But you only get that at level 8 onward, right? Another way that you can use a weapon maneuver is through exchanging stamina for it. Okay, so your Constitution score, your Constitution bubble, the modifier on the score there, and then stamina is the Constitution aspect, right? Anytime you make a Constitution check, save, etc., you mark off a stamina, right? You can choose to spend stamina to activate weapon maneuvers without surplus. You can keep all your surplus, keep all your damage, and just spend stamina, right? That is the Marshal's big resource. It's like, hey, I can activate all my maneuvers by spending stamina. It's bloody cool, right? It makes Constitution always useful for Marshals, right? Not absolutely necessary. Maybe you want strength more than con, right? But if you're all into your battle maneuvers and you really want them, you can do that. Even if you have a lower strength and you're not doing as much damage, you're actually keeping more of your damage because you're not exchanging it for surplus, and you get to do these cool things while keeping your damage. So it all balances out. It's different play styles, right? This one guy who has a high strength, yeah, he doesn't get to use his fancy weapon maneuvers very much, but he's just doing a steady amount of damage. This other guy, not as much strength score, not as much damage, but he gets to knock people down. He's doing more weapon maneuvers, and he's throwing people around and doing all sorts of cool things. And that's how he contributes to combat. Different styles, right? You actually have different styles of being a marshal. In 5e, you just walk up and hit someone. That's it. You have no choices. There's nothing interesting there. In this, you actually get to make choices. How do I want to play? What's my play style? How do I want to make this thing happen in the combat? It's actually interesting. It's actually fun. You're not bored playing marshals in Arches and Avatar. That's crowdfund me. Become a patron. Help me develop this. Help me quit my job and develop this and actually make it a full big thing. And you may think I love marshals and hate casters. just wait until you see what I've done with casters. Yeah, I talk about limiting their scope and whatnot. That's as much good for them as it is good for the marshals, because it's somewhat difficult to play a caster in 5e because it's just so big and so many it's just too much. So many spells, and by constricting it and say, hey, you're a fire mage, you can cast fire spells. You don't get every other element, you don't get fly, blah, blah, blah. You can do the fire stuff. You actually, as a designer, I actually get to really hone in on fire. Like, what does it mean to be a fire mage? And I get to actually give you cool abilities and things that make you feel like a fire mage. I get to really expand the concept of one specific subclass. Oh, you're a healer cleric? You don't have smite, you don't have guiding bolt, you don't have any damage. You're a healer cleric. What does it mean to be healer cleric? Well, the undead, they're dead, that's death. You have life magic, you can attack undead. You're casting your healing spells on dead, and it does damage to them. You know, as much as you're healing, you do 10 healing, that's actually 10 damage because they are necrotic, right? The whole like radiant damage thing, it's like, no, healing versus necrotic. Those are opposites. You know, one is healing and the other is destruction and death. You know, so like I can really zero in. Oh, you give people temporary HP. You give them, you change their max. You help them. You stop people from dying out. Auto staunch wounds. Gentle repose. You know, keep someone alive. Blah blah blah. You have. I can really fill out that subclass and give you abilities that make you feel like a life cleric, a healing cleric. Make it, expanded and massive, because they couldn't do that in 5e because they gave you access to the entire cleric spell list, no matter your subclass. So every cleric, first of all, felt the same because they all had access to 90% of the same spells. And then they couldn't overpower you even more by saying, by the way, now you get super awesome, life cleric abilities. They're like, we already give them the entire freaking spell list. We can't really go too far with that. I guess it'll just be kind of lame abilities. Oh, give someone some temporary HP a little bit and you're fine. It's like, no. In my system, because I'm stripping away this ridiculous act, a healing cleric can cast Water Walk. What is the water? What is alteration magic? What is levitation? What does any of that have to do with healing, right? It makes zero sense. It's like, oh, Jesus walked on water. It's like, you're not Jesus. Stop it. They just took Christian miracles and they just put it to this guy. It's like, but that doesn't make sense in the context of the game. What are you doing, right? It's just poorly done. It breaks immersion. It's like, oh, we're just Jesus and the apostles. Create food and water. Jesus fed the 5,000. It's like, come on. This is just cheap. It's lame. It's not fantasy. You're just pulling stuff from history. Stop it. So look, I get rid of all that and I say, hey, you're a healing cleric, a light cleric, a life cleric. This is how it works. And I restrict you and say, this is your bubble, the same way we do with martial characters. Like, oh, you're a rogue, you sneak good. We heavily restrict all the martials. Finally about time to do the same with the casters. And guess what? That actually makes it more interesting because they get to zero in on their niche and what they do. And then the designers get to give you like super mega awesome cool stuff to do instead of, everything I explained before. Anyway, we're gonna finish out with a couple of things. Warhammer, DA damage. The soar maneuver. You hit them with a warhammer, and their next attack has disadvantage. A glaive has reach, which means 10 feet, obviously. Your maneuvering maneuver, is you move an ally. Their careful movement. So you have an ally. Their movement speed is 20 feet. Careful movement speed is 10 feet. Right? So you can actually use your glaive and just move someone, their careful movement, right? That's cool. Any surplus or spending stamina, you can move people. Might come in handy. It's a glaive, it's cool. Glaives have like a little hook on it, so you take the nice side of the hook and like grab your ally and move him out of the way. Halberd, D10 damage. Rally maneuver. One ally gains your level in temporary HP. That's cool. It only lasts for... temporary HP, can't be stacked anyway, so I don't think there's an expiration on that. So yeah, you're like, hey, temporary HP, because you have a halberd. Rally around me, you have a halberd. That's cool. That's bloody cool. Anyway. Hook, flail, rapier, warpick, trident, morningstar, spear, pike. Oh, spear. Brace maneuver. Achieve action. You hold your achieve action to attack, and when a creature moves into your melee reach, you may attack with advantage. So you're holding your spear. It's like the 300 Spartans. They're coming in. You're holding your action. When they reach you, you attack with advantage. That's your bracing. You stick it in the ground or hold it or whatnot. You're bracing for an attack. The pike, though, the spear and the pike both have a 10-foot reach, normal, right? But the pike, you have lunging maneuver. Achieve action or whatnot. Increase your reach to 15 feet for one attack. Attacking a target within 5 feet with a pike is at disadvantage. So yeah, you have a big old long pike. You want to keep them 10 feet away, or maybe 15 if you want to use that extra maneuver, right? Like, because it's about. Have you seen a pike? Pikes are like 20 feet long. They're ridiculously long. So yeah, spear, brace, pike, like they're both polearm weapons. They both have a regular 10 foot, but one you have disadvantage within 5 feet, but you can also reach 10 feet. That's cool. Like, they're different. Range weapons, you have a blowgun, hand net, the hand crossbow, the net actually makes sense. Longbow, heavy crossbow. There are certain things where you, like a bow ignores chain because it goes right through the chainmail. Crossbow ignores like plate armor, it ignores that DR or like reduces the DR, stuff like that. Like oh, it's a heavily armored creature, let's use our crossbow for it. Oh, it's a creature with chain, let's use our bow, right? Different things work for different stuff. I think I'm going to end it there. Next time we'll get on to weapon specializations. There's a lot of cool stuff with weapon specializations. I'll have to get there. Man, talking about my equipment takes so bloody long, probably because half the time I'm just railing against 5e. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me. Like and subscribe, feed the algorithm, all that jazz. I have a Patreon and a Discord, and a higher tier of the Patreon will actually give you access to this, to the playtest in whole or in part. So thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and God bless.